Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you are joining us from around the world, and welcome to the start of the Schmidt Ocean Institute 2023 Virtual Symposium, Setting the Course. There have been a lot of changes at Schmidt Ocean Institute in the last couple of years, and we decided on this title of Setting the Course because we wanted to give you some bearings on our directions as we sail into the future. This virtual symposium format is very different from our previous one in 2021. 2 weeks ago, we released a series of 5 videos for you to watch ahead of time, and I hope you've had a chance to watch them. And starting now, today and tomorrow, we are here live to answer any questions that you may have on those videos or on Schmidt Ocean Institute. And I, Jyotika Virmani, Executive Director for the Schmidt Ocean Institute, have the privilege of being at your first Waypoint session to talk about all things new at SOI. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to thank Lisa Pereira, SOI's Events and Marketing Manager, and our communications team for all the behind the scenes work that went into making this possible. And now I'd like to introduce Allison Miller, SOI's Research Portfolio Senior Manager and our host and navigator for these sessions. So Allison, over to you.
Thanks so much for that enthusiastic welcome to kick us off, Jyotika. I'm really excited to be here with you today to answer everyone's questions. As Jyotika mentioned, I hope you had a chance to watch not just her video about what's new at SOI, but all of the videos that we will have questions and answers live for you over the next few days. Just a few logistical announcements before we dive into the questions that you have for us. Please enter all the questions you have in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom box, and we will get to as many as possible over the next 30 minutes. Closed caption has also been enabled, and you can turn it on or off using the icon at the bottom of your screen. As you heard when you joined, this session is being recorded and we will post it on the website in the next few weeks so that you can share it with others or revisit any content that you wish to hear again or missed. While we give our participants a chance to start typing their questions for Jyotika, I do have a few questions that we'll get started with that came in over our online form before this session started. So Jyotika, in your video, there are a lot of new things happening at SOI, but what is not changing is SOI's commitment to openly sharing data. How does SOI share its data, and what does it ask scientists to do that come on board?
Thanks, Allison. That's absolutely correct. We are maintaining our core principle that we were set up with, actually, which is including the open sharing of data. Because the faster data is shared, the faster we can reach a level of understanding that allows us to take action if action is to be taken. And we all actually saw that through the pandemic with vaccines that were developed at an unprecedented rate because the data on the virus was openly available. So what we do with our data is the data that we collect on the vessel is we send those to data repositories, and we ask that the scientists who are on board also share the data that's specific to their research that they have collected. We ask them to share it openly and as quickly as possible as well. And we always have a data plan before the scientists come on board, so we all know where that data is going. But I have to say, although there's a desire to share data openly and everyone agrees that the idea is great and there's many, many benefits, in reality, for us, on occasion, we've run into some resistance or delays from those who are on board. And so last year, we held a workshop in the UK with towards the end of last year with the Ditchley Foundation. It's called Credit Where Credit is Due. And it was to look into what are the barriers of openly sharing data in the academic world, and importantly, what solutions can be implemented to allow for that. And so in that workshop, we pulled together experts, leaders from 4 different sectors, from academia, from publishing, from data centers, and from funding, to discuss where the flow of data from the point of collection to broad scale access through those data centers and publishers could stall and why, and which of course then feeds back into academic credit through papers and through additional funding. And so we've actually released a final workshop report, and Allison, you were there, so very instrumental in this. And that workshop report includes a number of recommendations that are sector specific, so for data centers or academia or publishers or funders, as well as cross-sectoral ideas on how to improve the data sharing pipeline. And, you know, just to pick on a really simple example, one was changing the name of data repositories to data centers, which is super simple because there's a perception that a repository is somewhere that you just put data in and it's extremely hard to get out. And that's really not what those are for. So we'll hold another one of those in the US at some point and work with these sectors as we go into the future to help implement these ideas so that we can really see a shift in open data sharing.
Thanks, Jyotika. That sounds great. And Lisa just put the link to the report in our chat if you're interested in learning more about the workshop. You also mentioned that SOI takes the data from research vessel Falkor 2 and sends it to data centers. But I know we have a data solutions architect that also has developed some new ways to make our data accessible kind of in-house, if you will. Would you like to share some of what SOI is doing with its data?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the last just over 2 years, Corinne Batten joined us. She's our data solutions architect. And she, along with others at SOI, have been working on actually a number of ways of serving the data that we collect to a broader audience. So, for example, if you want to find ROV Sebastian's dives at a specific location in the world where the dive took place, you can now go to our dive vault, which is on the SOI GitHub, and you can click on the ROV icon and see that dive and the video pop up. Or if you're curious about where research vessel Falkor 2 happens to be, which, by the way, right now it's in port in San Juan in Puerto Rico after an amazing 40-day cruise to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. But you can easily find out where that where the vessel is from our ROV Falkor 2 live tracker, which also serves up, by the way, not just the location of the vessel, but some of the data that's being collected on board at the time. So these are all being developed in-house, but we're also working with others outside SOI. So for example, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, MBARI, their FathomNet is where we are looking to be able to use machine learning algorithms to automatically identify creatures or features on our dive videos. And we have, you know, hundreds of hours of dive videos. And so that's quite a task, but to have that machine learning capability to do that automatically is really going to help. And then that can then feed into their Ocean Vision AI program. So there's a lot going on with the data, and we're doing what we can to make it accessible to as many people as quickly as possible.
Sounds great. Your video covered a lot of topics, so these questions seem like they're jumping around a little bit, but they're all touching on things that were in Jyotika's video. And you mentioned some of the partnerships that SOI has, one being with Nekton. Could you share more about your partnership with Nekton and how SOI has worked with them over the past few years?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Allison. So Nekton is an organization in the UK, and we've been working with them for about just almost 3 years now, I think, on a program called Ocean Rising. And the idea behind Ocean Rising is to bring ocean into popular culture through various cultural streams, such as fashion, music, gaming, sports, literature, food, news, entertainment. There's many ways that, you know, culture touches our lives. And and how can we weave in the ocean so it's more of a constant background presence. And so, you know, one month it might be in a couple of areas and another it be another, but it will be there all the time as a reminder. So I think it was in 2021, we held a workshop and we published a white paper. It's on when we have a website, our Ocean Rising website. And then last year we held two culture specific workshops. One was on music and one was with experts in the fashion industry. So these were two workshops that held with Nekton, and there were hardly any oceanographers. In fact, the two of us groups were the oceanographers, but everybody else were experts in their various cultural fields. And so, and the idea was to brainstorm how we could work with them to bring the ocean into their world. And so we're going to actually start to see some fun fruits of those workshops later this year. And we're going to we started with music and fashion, and this year I think we'll do either sports or gaming. And so each year we'll start weaving in and building this program out.
I love that idea. I'm very excited to see the oceans become more pervasive in those sectors that we talked about. And I'm personally excited for the fashion one. So I can't wait to go shopping. Shifting gears a little bit, in your presentation, you marked out the 10-year expeditions map and talked a lot about that. And I know we've gotten some excitement in the community about that map too, and also a lot of questions. So the map ends at 2032 currently, and we have a question about what happens after the 10 years that we have drawn out on the map.
That's a very good question. Well, Falkor 2, our new research vessel, which you'll hear about a lot more later, is it's a large vessel. It's truly global ocean class vessel. It's 110 meters in length, actually. And it's a vessel that we just had finished our inaugural cruise on, but we will have that vessel for the next 30 years at least, I think. It's something that we will grow into and the science community will grow into. So, and our conceptual framework, our tagline is One Ocean, Seven Seas. So the idea is that we will continue to work our way around the world. And so 10 years stops, I think, just short of the Pacific Ocean. So at the start of next year, 2024, we will release a new map where we will add another segment. So we'll keep moving our way around the world, adding segments each year so that it's always going to be a living map and an ongoing and evolving 10-year vision. So we actually also just recently released our call for expressions of interest, which I think we'll talk about more tomorrow, but we'll be accepting those on a rolling basis, just like this map will continue to evolve on a rolling basis. So if you have a great scientific research project for a location that we're going to be in, please go ahead and submit it sooner rather than later, even if it is a few years into the future, because we're going to start evaluating those proposals as we get them. It's all flexible, but a big 10-year vision all the time.
Excellent. Yes, I'm excited to see what expressions of interest we get for the areas we have on the map. We do have a question about scientists coming on board the vessel and what types of other researchers, practitioners, or artists we're able to welcome on board. Could you talk a little bit about the multidisciplinary teams and also some of the other opportunities we have for people to come on board?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So Falkor 2 is, as I mentioned, much bigger. So there's a lot more berth space. And so in addition to scientists, we have expanded our Berths of Opportunity program, which we'll be discussing in more detail. Hannah will be discussing in more detail tomorrow. But the idea there is we had on Falkor Berths of Opportunity for students. So now it's not just students, but we would love to welcome on board wherever we happen to be in the world, local traditional knowledge holders, local marine park managers, local policymakers. So really expanding that Birth of Opportunity program to be a lot more inclusive and a lot more focused in the regions that we will be sailing in. And then our Artist at Sea program, you know, we've had that for many years now. Again, because we have more berths, we can now bring 2 on board, which is, you know, which is great. So, yeah, I think it will be truly interdisciplinary in many ways, not just the science, but we are looking for multidisciplinary science projects as well.
Excellent. I actually have a few questions about taking the vessel to Antarctica, which will be new for Schmidt Ocean Institute. So one question is, can someone apply for ship time now to go to Antarctica, and how close can you get to the coastline in that area? And then we also have a kind of along the same lines, but how capable of the vessel when sea ice conditions are expected, and should someone apply or submit an expression of interest for Antarctica, how capable are we of handling those conditions?
Wow, great. A lot of questions around Antarctica.
Yes.
Yeah, we're actually really excited because this vessel has got some sea ice capabilities. It can go through 10 to 15 centimeters. So it's not an icebreaker, but it can go through light layers of ice or first summer ice, that kind of thing. So you'll see on the map that we are actually aiming to be in the Antarctic region in the summer timeframe, so austral summer. So hopefully we can get somewhat close to the coast. It really does depend on how thick that ice pack is when we get down there. And then as for the questions on submitting for proposals for Antarctica now, yes, please go ahead and do so, because our first priority, and Leonard will probably talk about this maybe tomorrow some more, but our first priority, of course, is for 2024, because we need to complete that for operational planning purposes and permitting and things that Allison is very well aware of because she handles some of those. But we're aiming to be down towards Antarctica by the end of 2024. So yes, please do submit when you are ready, and sooner rather than later for that time frame. But I'm just going to add, we're actually going to go down twice, so 2024 into 25, and then about, I think, 4 years later. I don't have the map in front of me, but there'll be more than one opportunity around Antarctica.
Excellent. We also have a question about geological exploration that's possible on board the vessel, and maybe we could tie that question in with a brief summary of what Falkor 2 just finished doing in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, if you'd like to talk a little bit about how our first expedition went and maybe its tie into some of the geological discoveries that we made.
Yeah, absolutely. We just got back, the vessel just got back a couple of days ago from the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. The chief scientist was Dr. David Butterfield from NOAA PMEL and University of Washington. We also had scientists, as I said, from University of Washington, Woods Hole, from University of Victoria. So we had a lot of scientists on board. It was great. It was a really dynamic expedition, and the goal was to search for lost city type vents, and I think only 2 have been found so far, and these are very specific. They have a very specific chemical makeup. So they didn't find lost city vents. However, they did find 4, I think it's 4 new hydrothermal vents, black smoker vents, and it basically, they've never been seen before. There was suspected potential for activity in that region, but just making, confirming that. They gathered a lot of data. What was also remarkable about this was they had a nested approach on how they would search and seek out these hydrothermal vents. And it started with Falkor 2's general mapping capabilities. We have a very large gondola, 19-meter gondola on board, with a whole suite of sonar sensors. So starting with the general map from Falkor 2, then we had AUVs from Mbari, and David Caress was on board leading that did some higher resolution mapping, very, very fine scale mapping. We had CTD TOYOs to look for signals, and then we actually had our ROV Sebastian, of course, is also on board. So we put ROV Sebastian down to do the visual exploration. So it was really, I think it was quite a successful cruise from everything I've heard. So yeah. So we have a lot. We have some capabilities on Falkor 2 for geological oceanography, but we also had scientists who brought their tools, and we had the ability to be able to deploy multiple things in the water at the same time and really speed up that pace of exploration.
Yes, I think it was a very successful expedition, as you mentioned, and the imagery that ROV Sebastian captured was very stunning, at least for me, seeing the life surrounding those hydrothermal events.
Allison, what was your favorite? Do you have a favorite piece?
Oh, I mean, the shrimp party was so catchy. Yeah. I'll always remember that.
Yes. Yes.
It really was amazing. I had never seen anything like that.
Likewise.
We have a question about scientists bringing on specialized technology, and the person is asking about specific technology to study coral reefs. But maybe in general, we could talk about SOI's spirit of supporting innovative technology and how we're able to do that aboard Falkor 2.
Good question. We are very encouraging of supporting the development, prototype testing of new technologies. We did that on Falkor quite extensively. For example, we tested out of Mbari the deep PIV, particle image velocimetry, and other biological sensing capabilities that were developed at Mbari at Harvard. And those are really to assess biological oceanography in situ instead of extracting creatures from the ocean and bringing them back to the surface or into a lab to study. But part of our strategic framework is we have 7 topics, and one of those is technologies of the future. And so if you go onto our website for the strategic framework, you'll see a selection of subtopics within that. And we were set up to really help in that testing of innovative technologies. So please, if you do have proposals and ideas for that, we would also welcome those as part of our call for expressions of interest.
Excellent. And on the topic of the strategic framework and its 7 topics, we have a question about multidisciplinary cruises, and if someone's not able to pull together a cohesive group of scientists, can they still apply for ship time or participate on board Falkor 2?
Absolutely. I think there's many different avenues that someone could do that. So first of all, you could just go ahead and submit an EOI, and we can try and match make before the full proposal stage. If we see, 2 things that are somewhat similar but don't fully fill the vessel, if both parties are amenable, we can certainly try and match make. Another way is if you need data collected, please let us know, and we can see if there's an opportunity on the cruises once we've established who and where we're going in with more detail. Another option is once we've selected the cruises and announced them, you could reach out yourself to the chief scientist and see if there's a potential collaboration, or to any of the scientists that would make up that party. And then we did this as well. We have very good communication capabilities on Falkor 2. In fact, we now are also connected to Starlink, a low Earth orbiting satellite. So you can tune in remotely, and we have had that happen when we were around Australia during the pandemic, where everybody was essentially working remotely. But we had, for example, I recall there was a case where we needed a fish expert, and there was no fish expert as part of the science party. However, through social media and through our live streaming, they got connected to somebody who was a fish expert, and so that was a really great connection. So there is that way of building a scientific community through virtual collaborations and live streaming as well. And you have an opportunity to comment during the on our YouTube on the chat link. So there's many ways you can get involved, even if you don't personally have a fully built multidisciplinary group at your fingertips.
Yes, I think the short answer is that everyone is welcome, and we'll figure out a way to get your science on board Falkor 2 one way or another. On the kind of flip side of that, you just answered about small teams that may need to be matched together or participate in a different way. We also have some questions about the maximum amount of scientists that are able to participate on our new larger vessel.
So as I said earlier, we're going to be growing into this vessel. So at the moment, we're aiming for this year for somewhere in the 20 to 25 scientists, but I think we have berths for up to 40. And so as we grow into this vessel and get past this year of shakedown cruises, I think we can then slowly start to increase that. And so up to 40, I would say.
Excellent. And we look forward to filling up all those berths with 40 or more scientists. It will be a busy city out there. We have a couple more questions about the vessel, and then we may be ready to wrap up. But one question is, are there sediment cores on board for those geologists that are coming on board? And we also have a question about how long the vessel can stay out on a research site for a single cruise.
So we have a vibrocore, so we have some capabilities, but it's not like your JOIDES resolution, large coring type of capability at all. What we do have is a 150-ton crane, and this is new to generally the research world, that we bring this to you, and we are looking for how you could use that kind of capability. The other thing we do is we ask scientists after each cruise, what's missing, what additional equipment, instruments would be useful for the kind of work that they've done. So if there is something that you think, would be great to have on board, we are open to that. We would not have everything, obviously, immediately, but as we evolve and grow, we can add, and we will add more equipment, more robots, more tools on board so that you have what you need. The other thing we also do actually is when there is a cruise and there's a piece of equipment you need that you don't have, you should include that, and we will in your proposal, and we will look and see if we can acquire that, borrow it, rent it for the duration of your cruise. So that's so it's possible to achieve whatever science you need. And I should also add, we have a very large aft deck. Actually, Eric will probably talk about all of these, but we have a very large aft deck, which means that we can now plug and play different kinds of lab in containers. We've set the aft deck up to just pull containers on board and hook them up. So we can also basically change the science that we're able to do on that vessel fairly easily now.
Yeah, I was just about to say the sky's the limit for equipment we can bring on board Falkor too, but maybe I should say the size of the aft deck is the limit. So we'll make everything fit that we can. Well, Jyotika, we're running out of time, so thank you so much for taking the time to answer everyone's questions, and thank you to our participants for submitting such wonderful questions for Jyotika to answer, and I can't wait to see what the rest of 2023 and the future years on our 10-year expedition map holds for SOI. In 10 minutes, we will be hosting our next Waypoint session, Welcome Aboard Falkor 2. So if you have more questions about the vessel, please join that Waypoint with our Senior Director of Operations, Eric King. And Jyotika will be back later today to answer additional questions on what's new at SOI. So please check the Symposium website for details on all of those sessions coming up. And with that, Jyotika, I'll turn it over to you for our final words on what's new at SOI.
Well, I know we're at time, so I'm just going to say I look forward to seeing you all join us as we embark on new adventures. And I will be back, as you said, Allison, later today. So see you on board. Thank you.